What up, y'all? Today's topic was gonna be drawn from maybe who the narcissist picks for a partner, somewhere along those lines. As far as a love partner, a spouse, a husband, a wife. Most of the time, the narcissist, they grow up under the surveillance of an adult, usually either a mother or a father, or a mother or father figure, or a parental figure. It could even be even if your grandparents had raised you or something. That happens a lot, in certain situations as well. But are a narcissist, and so they either groom you to be supply, if they inherently and innately know you're not going to be a narcissist, or groom you to be the narcissist. And so you got to take a look at, the black sheep, and you got to take a look at the golden child, and see how these things, are constructed. We as the black sheep are the ones that are usually not the firstborn child, and usually are not the only child. Usually when there's a black sheep, there's more than one child, and it could very well seems to be that it may be closer to the youngest, maybe, but that's not a fact, but youngest child in the family. But nevertheless, what ends up happening is if they inherently and innately know that you're not going to be a narcissist, because I believe, like I said, I believe this is something that is even at birth. This is a spiritual situation that's taking place in the physical realm. As much as that sounds a little weird, I believe it to be true, because to me, this starts at birth. Like it's like spiritually they're trying to take you out at birth. Like when you hear some of the stories of how some of these empaths were either supposed to be aborted or died on the table when they were born, and that stuff happened to me. And for years, things come at me as a child when I reflect back. But they make you the trash can of the family, the joke, the inferior one, and the one that takes the brunt of the argument, all of the junk from all of the people in the family. They throw it all onto you. They project it onto you, and then for years and years you didn't understand that they were taking your good soul energy and throwing, purging and flinging their crap onto you, and hanging you out to dry. And a lot of times it can leave you either unsuccessful, or you could still have success in the midst of it, which then they're kind of sitting there scratching their heads, right? Because it's like, whoa, we've been doing all this to them, unbeknownst to them, and it still hasn't had an effect. I mean, and in some cases, both of those are true, to where you do have you're unsuccessful for quite a time, and you end up getting by nature, in my case, by nature, I ended up operating as if they were a narcissist, and doing all of the constructs that led a person away from the narcissist as a natural reaction over time, but it took years and years. You know, like when they say to gray rock, I started to gray rock. When they say to, like give as little information to get the job done, I mean, I did that, because you start to learn that their construct is completely different than yours, and it's just not going to matter anymore. I mean, even if you're asleep, in the case of me, you know, I was still waking to the fact that we are from two different, well, I didn't realize how much we were from two different cloths until I completely woke up, because, I mean, they just keep getting more destructive. I mean, when you, in my case, when I got outside my family, I mean, my family was destructive because you're enmeshed with them, but you also know how to, you can find ways to work around them and still get things done. But when you meet a love partner, usually the enemy will send one. In my case, they're just the next level from whatever the patriarch or matriarch or the narcissist in your family was. So it's like, you know, be the next step up when you leave the house, unbeknownst to you, but you'll find out, you know, soon enough you're dealing with something, you know, again. And then in my case, I was enmeshed in that for 10 years. And so anyway, but then you also have the narcissist, right? And they're groomed to, you know, either be the golden child or to just take up the ways of the narcissist. And what happens is the point in that is they are built into a codependency format by always being entrenched with that narcissist, and always being taught those constructs, and they take to them. So like in the case of me, I didn't take to them because I always thought that life didn't have to be like this. You know, even innately as a child, I used to think it was stupid. Like, why would you live like this? You're living by dumb constructs. I knew this as a child. You know, I knew this as a child. I know, it's funny because we would go to church sometimes and the pastor would preach the sermon, and as soon as we left, we'd be in the car and they would be talking, they would be doing all the things exactly opposite of what the pastor preached, and we're just leaving the church, and I'm sitting in the back seat as a little child like, did you guys not hear the sermon? You know? And you know, so I want to address this too. There's good churches and there's bad churches, so I don't want to like kill the church. The church is good, but you know, you gotta find something with some fruit, you know, if you can. That's the idea, right? But anyway, yeah, so that's how they kind of grow up under that construct, and that construct is kind of like you do as you're told, or else you get your ass kicked. And you know, the same thing kind of happens for the empath. I mean, most definitely, that we're, you know, you're growing up under the same counsel, you just don't take to it. It's kind of like the glue don't stick the same, you know. And that's where I know that it's innately, because it's kind of like, I can always say innately, I never doubted that God was, and that he was who he says he was. I just didn't know him. I wasn't saved or something until years later. But so just like that, I never doubted God, and nobody had to tell me that. So I believe there's certain things that are innately you, and that's what I believe is your soul, you know. And so you're brought up under those constructs, and you know, they take to it, the glue sticks to them, it doesn't stick to you in the same fashion. And you know, a lot of times I would look at it like, this is dumb, but you do learn to you do learn some of the the concepts and the understandings of how the narcissist works so sneaky, because you have to operate that way as an empath in a household of that if you want to conduct your life and not get destroyed. Okay, and that's where you get like this understanding of the super empath. The super empath is the one that they've walked down a lot of the constructs of the narcissist, just didn't become the narcissist. So you end up understanding how the narcissist operates because you operate it. There's several different ways that, I mean, this is my opinion now. I've never heard anybody talk on this really about how the super empath is constructed into the super empath. But the super empath is, in my opinion, the one that grew up, because I'm telling you from my heart. I try to tell you the truth and the best that I can from my own abilities. But they grow up under the same constructs, but they always glue it and stick the same. Okay, so and you always thought like, man, you're it's like somebody who makes a relationship difficult. You're like, this is stupid, right? Well, the same thing in your family. It's like, why are you making life so difficult? It doesn't have to be this way. And that's where the glue doesn't stick. Because your concepts of thinking are just not the same. And that's why, and that's why you're the one that's the truth teller. You're the one that always brings up the truth when they're delusional. And that's why they always destroy you. They're always hitting on you, like hitting on you, like hitting you with a hammer or something, I mean, it's like they're always putting you down and stuff, because you're always showing them where their delusion is. Like you could both be in the same place and you were the silent child in the corner, and they're talking about a scenario that occurred amongst a bunch of people, and you're like, I was there, it didn't happen like that. Are you crazy? And this could be even as a young child, and you just kind of feel that inherently. You just gotta tell like how you saw it. Why? I can't be fake like that. And you just don't understand them. Like, why would you think like that? I mean, you do know where it's coming from. It's coming from them getting supply off it. Them in their grandiose self making a story bigger and better than it was, or them more of a hero than they were, when in fact it just didn't happen like that. But for me, I could always see through the act. And that's the thing. I still say today that yes, there's red flags. Yes, yes, we did walk into this relationship, and it did turn in and culminate into like a bunch of craziness in our life. And why do we do it? If we're so smart, why didn't we, stop it a long time ago? Because I have to say, there's just other things that draw you in, and you know what you're getting drawn into at some point. Maybe not in the very, very beginning in your first narcissistic relationship with a love partner, but in this last one, I hadn't completely honed my intuition, and I didn't know that I was dealing with somebody that was dealing with demons, for instance. But so that kind of stuff gets a little bit. That's new. That's new to the territory. There's a lot of new things to the territory, and when you wake, you woke, something snaps in you, and now you go from sleep to awoke like overnight. And but I always said that the narcissist is a horrible actor, in my opinion. If it's the acting through the lies that they're trying to do, well, I mean, that's the thing. They're crappy actors, but if they do their crappy acting for so long and you slowly start to give your heart up, that's where you get kind of tricked. And that's where it becomes kind of insidious. And that's where they get you. They get you over time, but their acting sucks. Their acting sucks. I always could see right through it. I don't know. In a weird way, when I hindsight look back, it's like I kind of allowed myself to get played. I think that you see, like, you try to draw off them as if they're, you know, like, you want to give them the benefit of the doubt. You kind of like also look at them like, you see some jewels in them, and they really, like, the narcissist, they've been completely hijacked and they've lost all of their fruit to never get it back again. But what the empath sees through all of that lying, faking, and acting, the super empath sees they see what if these dumbasses didn't give themselves up, would have been they would have been an awesome individual. Okay, there you go. This is where they get all their credit. Man, they could have been an awesome human being, but they sold out to a fucking lie. And now they're trash. And that's the shame in it. And that's what I think that the super empath sees is, and that's where the super empath goes down the road of feeling so bad for them. This is my humble opinion. I mean, because I've had multiple partners with several narcissists, and you know, it took, I was, 45 or something to wake up, you know. Anyway, but what they inherently look for is, because they're around the parent figure and told what to do and learned how to walk in maladapt in every situation in a maladaptive way, they learn these constructs and they get brainwashed to some degree. To some degree, a lot of narcissism is brainwashed into certain constructs, because they're not, it's like they get hijacked. You get hijacked at a young age, at, you know, as a toddler, child. And so it becomes, like I said, I spoke on culture. It becomes a form of, you know, a lot of times as a child gets older, they believe this is just our culture. You know, I grew up in an Italian family. We just believe like this because we're Italian. That's just what we do. Or if you're Greek, that's just what we do. Or if you're African American, that's just what we do. You know, and so you got to watch that culture stuff. I mean, like the same thing with Hispanic, Puerto Rican, all of that. They have what they call culture. Culture does not mean that it is, I don't want nothing to do with culture. How about that? Because what I see culture is maladaptive constructs that are cloaked under a name, a title, to a congregation of a subset of people. Okay, and that to me is one of the best weapons of the Illuminati, or of the fallen system, the Matrix, to put pride into something that they call culture that's distinctively related to your bloodline. And that's just, it's pride, it's segregation, and so many maladaptive things come with that. But as a child, you grew up under certain concepts and thoughts and ideas and ways, and you know, sometimes it's under culture, which the root of that to me is cult. Okay, and then outside of that, you're just told that this is what you do. You're seen and not heard. You just believe what we tell you. You believe, you know, you're from your politics the way we do, to what we say. Do what I say, don't do what I do. You know, these are the kind of concepts, you hear them in life today, but these are the concepts and the constructs that the narcissist and the empathic black sheep grow up under. And they take to them. And so does, in my opinion, so does the black sheep. I mean, and that's why you're all gas lit up, man, because you have to come out of this cloud of, and I mean, it's kind of like you're under the spell, but you don't believe it, as a youngster growing up. But you have to watch it because, like I said, it's insidious. It's also, it's pathological, and it's very manipulative. And when it's coming to you from a small child, from a toddler, it's like, to some degree, even though you may have, the glue's not sticking the same, and it seems stupid. I guess you might see some of the right constructs out and about, maybe in public from time to time, from other people. But it's just like, you understand nature and humanity to the core, And so that's where you're not so dislodged. And that's where I believe it becomes innate in the empath. But like I said, not all empaths wake up, and no narcissists seem to. But you kind of start walking down that road of the narcissist because you use a lot of those maladaptive behaviors as a child, as a teen. I think that you understand the masks, because you have used those concepts as well, whether it be people pleasing to get out from under abuse, or you may have the empath in childhood would have like different groups of people where they would act to somewhat differently. And then what happens though is as you grow older, you really hated all of that. So you did it as you operated under it as survival, to ensure that you could have the best life you could have under their roof. But when you get out from under them very quickly, you start, as a single individual, hopefully you're single for a while. So I had a number of years of single when I was, away from them. And they, and you kind of like start to get out from under those concepts and thoughts. So, and for me, when I got saved is when actually a lot of that stuff fell off too. I got saved at the age of 20. Yeah, so I really experienced the Lord for a number of years in a heavy way, man. And so that helped me to drop a lot of those constructs as well. Like, how some things you just have right away, they just fall off you. Some things fall off you, and some things become footholds and strongholds, in your life that you have to deal with for years. But some things just fall off you. I think, like, I do know, like, there was certain things that fell off me. Like, up until I got saved at the age of 20, I remember I had jealousy. I could hold grudges. There are certain things that the narcissist contains that I used to, I was walking down those roads, for a long time. But they fell off me. I remember those are two that fell off me. And I, having a balanced scale of treating people like with an equal scale. That was something that became very prominent in my life at that point as well. So not cheating, how about that? Not cheating people out from things and stuff like that. That all kind of fell off from me at the age of around 19, 20, 21, 22. Like I said, I'm 48 now. But they inherently look for a love partner that's going to be like their family member. When they leave the house, they're able to like mimic other people, friends and stuff that are out and about that are their age. But, they, tend to get enmeshed with somebody very quickly and stay with that person, or stay with that person for a time until they could find a more suitable individual. But they will look for someone to take over the parental role that they grew up under, because they don't really have a mind and a brain, and they don't really have their soul. Their soul is twisted. It's kind of like all of the thoughts and those concepts came from their parents, that parental figure or those parental figures, and they just believe them. At some point, they just believe them. Those concepts, thoughts, culture, whatever you want to call it, they just start to believe them. That's why sometimes when you get into a discussion, they don't like to have discussions about things very deeply. Because when you dig in with them, it could be anything. It could just be that whatever their political views are, if that ever came up, which I don't even get too much involved in, because I believe in just doing me, the best version of me. And that's if we would focus on, doing, not so much, judging individuals, but focusing on the best version of yourself. And that is hard enough. Then, that's what you want to do, in my opinion. I think that's what changes the world. If you do the best version of you, God will heal your land. He ain't going to heal everybody's land in your country. I hate when pastors say that. God's going to heal the country because if we, no, he said he'd heal your land. That's the land you walk on. That's why he talks about, you could have 1,000 enemies. He'll sit you down in the presence of your enemies, but you will not be touched. Because that's your land. When you're operating right, correctly, you could be in the middle of a major war. There could be nobody with food around you, but you'll have a plate of food. Woo! And so, yeah, so they get somebody to be their new parental figure. I don't even think that they realize, but somebody that, is going to take care of the bills, take care of the children, take care of them, and they can be, they because they are a little child inside, because they never grew out of those concepts, because they never really thought for themselves. It's almost like they're zombies. They walk under patterns. And that's why those patterns are all the same. They're all taught very similar patterns. And they just believe them, because over time they get to where they're enmeshed with them. They're doing them. They're walking through the physics of them, and they're and the psychological for so long. And they're taught not to think and not to use intuition and things like that. And then those concepts become their hardware and their software, or the software to their hardware. So their body is their hardware, and the software would be their mind, their heart, their thoughts, their spirit, and all that. And that's what gets hijacked to a point to where they just can't look at things any other way than the concepts of that narcissistic parent that was placed in their life, or those parents and those other children that became corrupt with them. It becomes a community in the household, or a cult. It's a cult. It's a small cult. And then you go out and, they enmesh themselves, or the family members will be friends, and they will get along with other people that think like them. And that would be other narcissists. We believe this way, and that's just the way it is. But they can't discuss things because certain things, that's why they stop discussions abruptly at a lot of times, because they can't. It's like their hard drive has a malfunction. It's like at some point it goes into like overdrive, and then it burns up. It's like the smoke coming from their brain. They can't think for themselves. So if you go down a road of a discussion too far, too long, they just get annoyed, and they will like rage on you or something, and then walk away, or whatever, however it goes, because it's their way or the highway, and that's just the way it is. It's a one-way street. And that's why as a child you get to a point to where you don't even want to have, if you're an empath, you're kind of like, the glue's not sticking, because you're like thinking, this is stupid, or why would you do that, or or you're making me look like a fool with you, that kind of stuff, and or it doesn't need to be this way, or why are you spending money like that? Everything's maladaptive, and you see how stupid it is, and it's not natural, but it's still happening, and they're the adult, and you have no power. You have to count on them for food, transportation, education, health, everything. I mean, because as a child, what are you gonna do? And so they do look for that, and then they'll find a secondary love partner as the secondary supplies, the one that they want to have sex with, because they can't have sex with the person that's like their father figure or mother figure that is their spouse. And that's why that you'll see the sex like slows down and stops in the person that is the in-house empathic trash can spouse that they have. So they have to have a secondary supply. So I would say at least every narcissist has at least a secondary supply. At least that. There's at least 3 of you at all times, at least, because at the construct of that, and I think that they're always like under that construct, even if they're not married, because they're grooming. And so it's kind of like, I don't know what they look at the secondary supply as, and maybe there's the husband and then the boyfriend, or the wife and then the girlfriend, or they may look at him as a fun friend. I don't know. But I mean, you're better to be secondary supply than the first, the grade A, because the grade A takes all the crap and they don't even get the sex. At least the secondary supply doesn't have to deal with the crap, and but they get all, like, more of the goods. But you don't want to be any of them. I'm just saying that I think the best spot to be would be the secondary supply. So that's kind of what they look. What they look for is I heard somebody say, Phil is how that was the acronym, which was at least a female or a female covert narcissist. They look for Phil, which would be a protector, a helper, someone with integrity, and a true person that truly loves and loves them passionately. And I guess from those 4 pieces, everything else is set into place, set in motion, to where they have with the integrity and stuff, they have to be a man of their word, or maybe a woman of their word. They have to be hardworking. If they have those 4, they're successful by nature. If they have those 4, they're passionate, and they're truly an empath. If they have those 4, they won't leave the partner, so that unconditional love will be there if they have those 4. And when they get into trouble, they need help, and so that's why they want that parental figure. So that's why what you'll see is the mother-child, the father-daughter, type thing, or the the mother-son thing in that type of scenario show up in your relationship. After a short time, you'll start, if you were to pay attention, that's what it'll look like. It'll start to culminate into that, and you'll start to see the inner child in them. And when they want things, you know, they'll come to you and manipulate you as that little girl, the hurt little girl, and you will see it for that. And I don't know, I can be a sucker for that, or have been. That really worked. But you know, they're manipulations, right? So you got to be careful. That was good acting, because that was probably more of the true them. But, and then, you know, and so that's kind of like pieces of how it starts and what they look for. I'm going to do a part 2 on this though. But, soldier up, stand tall, peace out. Love y'all.